There is an addiction more subtle than any chemical, more consuming than any drug, an addiction that feeds silently on the soul. It's called judgment. At first, it hides behind justification. Someone wrongs you. You feel the spark, a flash in the brain, an electrical storm of indignation. The world feels right to resent because resentment masquerades as strength. But beneath that spark lies the beginning of a chain reaction that can last a lifetime. Resentment is a counterfeit energy. It pretends to give you power but secretly drains it. It promises justice but delivers bitterness. Each time you replay the offense in your mind, you reinforce the wound. You believe you're mastering it, yet it's mastering you. Every mental replay is a tithe paid to the emotion that first seduced you. Roy Masters called it the addiction to judgment. He said that every time we judge, we feed the very thing we despise. It's the oldest trap in the human story, the serpent's whisper that you can be as gods, deciding who is good and who is evil. But in playing God, you lose touch with God. Think of a moment when someone humiliated you. Days later, the image still flashes in your mind. You rehearse clever comebacks, you build invisible courtrooms in your head, and in each imaginary trial you are both judge and jury. You feel justified, yet something inside corrodes. You sense it when you see them again, the tightening chest, the racing thoughts, the trembling pretense of control. The poison circulates. That small resentment multiplies itself through thought, emotion, and body. Soon it spreads beyond the original event. You begin to resent yourself for your anger, your weakness, your endless reactivity. And thus begins the circular prison. Judgment of others birthing judgment of self. Judge not, says Scripture, lest you be judged. It was never a command born of fear. It was a spiritual law of resonance. To the degree you condemn, you trap yourself in the same vibration. Forgiveness is not weakness. It is resonance with a higher frequency, one beyond the polarity of right and wrong. Masters taught that righteous anger, the kind Christ used when overturning the tables of corruption, is not the same as resentment. True strength arises not from hatred but from clarity. To resist evil without hating it is divine. But to hate evil is to become a mirror of it. Every reaction transfers its pattern. Respond to temptation, and you inherit its likeness. Our society doesn't recognize this energy transfer. We mistake constant outrage for moral awareness. We reward indignation with attention. We have built entire economies on offense, news cycles, social media, politics, all designed to keep humanity addicted to judgment. Every algorithm knows that resentment sells better than peace. But there is another way to live, the way of stillness. Masters described a simple but radical shift, to wake each morning not to react, but to observe, to meditate in silence, to let thoughts pass like clouds, and to watch for the opportunity not to be offended. He said the beginner's first task is not to fix the world, but to practice overlooking small provocations, because the one who conquers small resentments gains strength against greater ones. It's strange how the human mind seeks what harms it. We look for opportunities to be upset. Like addicts, we need the jolt, the drama, the validation of pain. Pride feeds on that reaction, for it owes its life to opposition. It cannot survive in stillness. Evil whispers for our response because it feeds through our energy of judgment. When you stop feeding it, something miraculous happens. The illusion collapses. Evil only thrives when believed in personally. Withdraw the judgment and it loses its host. Forgiveness is not emotional forgetfulness. It is not pretending harm didn't happen. It is awakening from the illusion that you are the avenger. Vengeance is mine, says the divine. I will repay. Forgiveness means stepping aside, surrendering your claim to divine authority, and letting justice unfold through a higher order. To forgive does not mean to condone. It means to see clearly without resentment. When you see through the offender's blindness, you see the mechanism that once ruled you and you pity it. You recognize that the very spirit which tempted them is the same that tempted you to hate. Forgiveness is not moral superiority. It is awakening from shared hypnosis. When you stop judging, the judgment on yourself begins to dissolve. The heaviness in the mind loosens, the anxiety fades, the compulsive self-analysis calms. You realize that the inner accuser was never divine conscience. It was the echo of your own condemnations reverberating back. There is a moment, if you stay aware, when temptation approaches, a word, a look, a remembered insult, and you feel that old spark. This is the crossroads. If you observe without reacting, if you simply watch the energy rise and pass, a new power enters. It feels like light. It holds the reaction in suspension and neutralizes it. This is grace in action, consciousness dissolving the reflex of judgment. From that moment, a new life begins, one guided not by reaction but by discernment. Discernment is not judgment. Judgment says, I am better. Discernment says, I see clearly. One separates, the other heals. Our world is starving for discernment. Every conflict today is the offspring of resentment. Nations, ideologies, families, all reenacting the same ancestral wound, the need to play God. Masters warn that the human ego survives through this very game. Separated from its source, it must manufacture identity by opposing something. To stop judging feels like death to pride, and in a way, it is. Pride dies so that the soul may live. That's why forgiveness feels unnatural at first. We are addicted to our inner courtroom. To step out of it leaves a silence we confuse with loss. But within that silence waits a deeper power, not the authority of dominance but of awareness. The power to see evil and not become it. The strength to act without hatred. This state is not passive. It is the purest form of action, movement guided by insight, not emotion. The warrior of the spirit fights without anger, speaks without contempt, and loves without sentimentality. He or she becomes a living mirror of divine neutrality, through which good flows effortlessly. Resentment blocks this flow like a dam. It traps divine energy behind walls of pride. Release the resentment and life floods back. Anxiety, depression, fear, all begin to lift because their power source is gone. The human nervous system was never designed to sustain endless judgment. It collapses under the weight of what it tries to control. The meditation masters spoke of the art of still observation is not a retreat from life but a return to its true current. When you wake and observe your thoughts without merging with them, you become the witness. The witness cannot be hurt. It simply sees. From that vantage point, you understand every offense for what it truly is, a test of consciousness. Those who seek peace must practice awareness as devotion. The act of watching quietly without analysis or reaction is forgiveness in motion. In that silence, the mind reattunes to its source. The false power of judgment fades and a higher power flows through. Humanity's healing begins not with laws or revolutions, but with this individual awakening. When even a small group of people refuse to feed judgment, collective vibration shifts. The war of minds begins to quiet. Compassion replaces outrage. Clarity replaces ideology. Forgiveness is contagious. It is the only contagion worth spreading. In the end, the journey out of judgment is the journey home, from the God we imagined ourselves to be, back to the God that simply is. The moment you see clearly, without hatred, without pride, and without fear, the ancient burden lifts. What once demanded effort now becomes grace. And then, for the first time, you understand what it means to overcome evil with good. Not through fury, not through force, but through stillness, the stillness that reveals the light behind all things.